Hello there, this is Kathie with Craft with Kathie. Thanks for joining me today. Hi, this project is adding some transfers or personalizing a canvas tote. And to do that, I'm going to be using a transfer from the Endless Wonder series with a shell and a starfish. This transfer is in 3 pieces, or can be cut into 3 different pieces. If you could see the little white line separating the pieces, I'm using that as my guide to cut this apart with my transfer trimmers. Our transfer trimmers have an extra long blade to make cutting transfers apart very easy, and a special coating so that the adhesive from the back of the transfers does not stick to the blades. My canvas tote has kind of a plastic lining, so I will not be using ink to apply this. I will be using chalk paste. If I used ink, it would need to be heat set, and heat setting it would melt the inside of the tote. So that's why I'm using chalk instead of ink in this situation. This is an outtake from our Watts of Love fundraiser on Saturday. This was a cute project. If you haven't heard of Watts of Love, it's an organization dedicated to bringing light to the people who live in dark. There are more people living in darkness today than there were when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. And Watts of Love supplies solar lighting to families in need who have depended upon kerosene to light their homes. Before I start applying the transfers, I actually have to do what's called fuzz them. And fuzzing a transfer means to deliberately apply lint or fuzz to the back of the transfer. This can be done using a towel or a fuzzing cloth. Our fuzzing cloth has 2 sides. One side is microfiber used for cleaning boards and drying the transfers, and the other side of the fuzzing cloth is like a terry cloth, and that's the side that you use to deliberately apply lint to your transfers. Now, as my canvas bag is kind of like cloth to begin with, I really don't need to fuzz this too much. But these seem pretty sticky, so I thought I'd apply a little bit of lint to them. And the purpose or the intent behind applying the lint is so that the transfer does not stick too snugly to your surface, especially when applying transfers to glass or galvanized metal or mirror. The transfer can stick very, very snugly, and you don't want to run the risk of when you lift it off to pull it or stretch it. So that's basically the idea behind using a fuzzing cloth and fuzzing your transfer. I'm just smoothing out my tote bag. This is rather a good sized tote bag. I'm thinking about 14 inches wide by 16 inches high. And then I'm going to set the transfers on the tote bag at an angle. The shell on the left side and the starfish on the right. I smooth down the transfers, making sure there are no air bubbles. Our transfers are made of vinyl and silkscreen. The teal is the vinyl, the clear portion is the silkscreen, and they're somewhat like fabric, so you want to use a little care in handling them. You never want to pull or tug them by the corners, because you could stretch it. It's much the same as you would stretch fabric by pulling it on the bias. Our transfers are reusable 8 to 12 times with proper care, sometimes even more than 12 times. So you can get a lot of use from an individual transfer, and it's fun to mix and match images and wording from different transfers on your projects. On this project, I use the Endless Wonder, and then I also use the Let Your Heart Be Your Compass for the wording. I'm going to use papaya chalk paste on the starfish and Couture coral on the shell. This is chalk paste, not chalk paint. It is basically liquid chalk that goes on liquid and dries hard. When the chalk paste can be applied directly with a squeegee, or you could use a little stir stick. I generally stir up my paste, making sure it's the proper consistency, which should be between yogurt and sour cream. And then I'll use my little stir stick to apply it to the transfer, and the squeegee, a little rubber squeegee, to push the chalk paste through the silkscreen onto the surface below. Once I've smoothed it all through the silkscreen, then I go back, make sure there are no lines or anything, and remove any excess paste from the transfer and put it back in my jar of paste. As you can see, a little bit of chalk paste goes a long way. If you can butter toast, you can chalk. This is a very simple craft that provides a lot of creativity and variety in projects. I absolutely love chalking with Chalk Couture. Isn't this cool? What a beautiful image. So quick and easy. I'm putting the transfer in a water bath to be cleaned later, where I'll rinse off the chalk and then remove any lint from the back of the transfer. Now I'm going to close up my papaya chalk paste, put my stir stick in a little water bath to clean, and add a spritz of water to the top of the paste in the jar so that it's moist when I open it next time. If your paste becomes too thick, a little spritz of distilled water will help loosen it up. If you've added too much water, leave the cover off until it thickens to the desired consistency. Really not much more to it than that. This is my Couture coral chalk paste. I'm stirring it up and applying it again to the transfer with my stir stick. And then I'll smooth it through the white part of the transfer, the silkscreen, onto the surface, the tote bag beneath it. Once I have it all smoothed and pushed through the silkscreen, which really doesn't require much pressure at all, then I'll go back and clean it up, smoothing any lines and removing additional chalk paste and putting the excess back in the jar. Needed a little bit more here for the wording near the top. See how simple and quick? What a neat way to personalize things. T-shirts, tote bags. I've seen a lot of designers recently adding a little bit of embellishments to their jeans. I haven't done that yet, but will be doing it soon. Kind of reminds me of my younger days when I would embroider on my bell bottoms. Now, doesn't this give it a nice beachy kind of a look? I need to put this aside and let it dry before I flip it over and chalk the other side. I've chosen another transfer with the phrase, "Let your heart be your compass," to put the wording on the reverse side of this tote bag. I think it keeps with the nautical theme or the beachy theme of the tote bag itself and will provide a nice accent. This is a new transfer. I'm going to label the backer and then cut the transfer apart. I'm not going to use the top portion or the heart. The words can actually be inlaid on the heart, and I think that would be nice as a little piece of home decor. But for my beachy tote bag, it really doesn't apply. So I'm going to just cut this apart and only use the inlaid words. And I've chosen Couture teal paste to coordinate with the tote bag or with the teal accents on the tote bag. This is from my Saturday Watts of Love Chalkathon. So in support of Watts of Love, where I was auctioning off finished pieces to raise funds to provide solar lighting for families in need. My chalk paste has dried. Normally I would use ink, but as this tote bag has a somewhat plastic lining, using ink to heat when I would heat press to seal it or to make it permanent would make the lining melt. So I'm using the Couture teal paste excuse me, instead of the ink. So this side has dried, and I'm going to flip it over to chalk the phrase on the other side. This is the phrase that I'm going to apply to the transfer. I'm going to center it. And first, just like I did on the other side, I need to fuzz the transfer to prepare it for the surface, adding a little bit of lint so it doesn't stick quite as snugly. And as I'm applying this to canvas, I really don't need to fuzz it too much because it's kind of like applying it to cloth to begin with. I did fuzz it mainly to not pull up so much fiber from the canvas itself, kind of like that straw fiber. I'd rather just have the lint from my fuzzing cloth, which is easy to remove. So I'm centering the transfer. And then smoothing it down to make sure there aren't any air bubbles underneath the silk screen. And I'm going to use my Couture teal chalk paste to apply the phrase to the other side of the tote bag. Wouldn't this tote bag be great to carry your little beach items? Sandals, a blanket, a book, sunglasses, sun lotion. Oh, my longing for summer, doesn't it seem like it? Nice and roomy and perfectly suited to a beach environment. It's been a long spring here. It's been cold and rainy and just not a typical warmer spring. And I think everyone is really, really longing for summer at this point. So I'm going to apply the paste with my stir stick and then use my squeegee to push the chalk paste through the silkscreen onto the tote bag. Once I have it fully covered, then I'll go back, smooth out any irregularities or lines or streaks or anything in the chalk paste, and then remove any excess paste and return it to my jar. A little bit of chalk paste sure goes a long way. Doesn't take much. And look at how quick and easy this is. What a neat way to personalize some of your belongings. Now I'm going to lift the transfer off of the tote bag. I always want to lift from the left, the right, or the top or the bottom. There you go. Let your heart be your compass. What do you think? Thank you so much for watching this quick little project. Have a wonderful life.